Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Okay, my friends, once again, it's time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning's talk champion, of course, none other than the one and only Jonathan Small. Good morning, Jonathan. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Stan. It's good to be back here again. I look forward to it every week, as I always mention. And pretty much trying to get off to a good start for the new week.
All right. Had a good weekend?
A little tired working. Unfortunately, I missed the jazz event. I had to work Saturday evening and going into Saturday night. So I heard y'all had a good time. I rested up yesterday, recuperated. But, you know, I heard it was really nice. And
great time.
Great time. Just the timing wasn't for my day off. So, you know, and it looked like a lot of people was down there.
It was a great time. A lot of people down there. It was a lot of fun. Friday or Saturday night had to be at least 40,000.
40,000.
Well, maybe 30,000, 40,000. It was a lot of people. Packed.
Right.
Couldn't walk in Bushnell Park.
And I believe people from out of Connecticut. I know the mate, Dennis Mate, him and his wife came there. And I'm pretty sure there had to be other people from out of state that came to the event.
Yeah, but Dennis Mink doesn't count.
He doesn't count?
No, because he's from here.
Oh, that's right.
He came home.
He came home.
You know, if you come home, that's not like from being out of town.
I think his wife probably is not from Connecticut, though. But obviously they're married, so they're going to come together.
Right. He didn't get married since he left, since he retired, moved.
Right. So,
yeah.
But I'm pretty sure there had to be people out of state.
There were people there from out of state because we interviewed a lot of people. And so we were down there and we interviewed lots of people from all over the region.
Very big event, the Greater Hartford Jazz Festival.
Greater Hartford Festival of Jazz was the 31st Greater Hartford Festival of Jazz, and they was beautiful weather. 3 days of great weather.
But I mean, it's really starting to take off pretty big over the past 3 to 5. I know you said 33 years.
31 years.
31 years.
Yeah.
But it seemed like to me it's really picked off at a different level over the past 3 to 5. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
I think you may not have been paying attention.
Okay.
It's always been a pretty big deal. It's like the number one free jazz festival in the country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you was going to say New England, but you said the country.
In the country. Yeah. It has been in New England, but last night they announced in the country. Now, of course, it isn't free, but it's free to the folks who attend. And this year it was 4 days.
4 days. So I could have saw it last night then, or yesterday evening.
The Manhattan Transfer closed out last night. I got distracted, though. I don't know what I was doing. I got distracted because I'm thinking the big event was Saturday. I know y'all might have had something yesterday on a smaller scale. I didn't realize it was going to have the same. No, Saturday. Now, we went down there. Maybe you heard us talking about, the Greater Hartford African American Alliance was meeting. We had like a little, all the members could get together in like one place type thing. But that was Saturday.
Okay.
But, no, the event started Thursday. With Hall High Jazz Concert Band. Then they had the Friday night. Then Saturday. And then close out on Sunday.
Sunday, right.
So 4 days. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure you ran across other people that you knew.
Oh, everyone. Everybody is there.
Is there, exactly. No,
all your old friends are there, and people from around town are there. Strangers. It's like a family. It's a family reunion.
Particularly after the last year. I guess they didn't have it 2 years ago.
No, they had it last year.
Well, last year.
I recall last year, but they
years,
missed a year.
That was 2020.
Yeah, 2021. No, 2019, 2000. I think 2000. I think they only missed 1 year. I can't really recall, but
maybe
because of the pandemic.
But maybe it was more scaled down last year.
3 days.
I don't think it was as huge. Oh, it was last
3
year?
days. Always 3 days, yeah.
Just as huge? Okay, so it wasn't even scaled down last year.
Yeah, in fact, the year that it was the pandemic, they did it virtual, as I recall.
So obviously you didn't have anything to do with that one, with the videotaping, if they did it virtually.
Well, I always do a little package. I don't do the big screen stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do the
packaging.
The packaging.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did see you online. You had the camera.
Yeah, we cover it. We cover it. Yeah.
So it's kind of more work for you, though. Actually.
No, I enjoy this.
I
enjoy this. This year was not work because I was strictly doing this. The network, so to speak, did it. We did this. We did this out of kindness of heart, so to speak. So that's not work.
Okay.
It's only work when I'm getting paid.
When you get paid. So volunteer, you did.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. That's not to say that I didn't get paid in the past. Sometimes I get paid, but I've only gotten paid very few times relative to the number of times that I've done this event over the 31 years.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of positive things I've been hearing over this past week in the capital city. I think we always talk about that after the Zoom guest.
Yeah. Do that after our special guest.
Right.
Yeah. Because, of course, it is Special Guest Monday, which means that every Monday we, of course, have special guests join us. Jonathan finds a special guest from around the country and around the world to share their wisdom and knowledge with us so we can be up to date on things that are happening outside of the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star.
All right. And I do that by design, too.
Well, I mean, you can't be isolated, living in a silo. There's more happens in the world than in your immediate circle.
That's the purpose.
The only way you can know that is to talk to people from outside of our circle, our city.
Right.
And you do a great job at that, Jonathan.
Thank you. Well, again, this morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show, we have a person who was very instrumental in the founding of a major entertainment company. And we have the pleasure of learning about not just his involvement with the company, but a little bit about himself and a little bit about, I guess a big part about a major city in the United States. The guest this morning, he represents the Harlem Community Board 10. He is the chairman of the Arts and Culture Committee based out of Harlem, New York. He's also the CEO of Harrell Media, Inc., no other than George Harrell. Good morning, George. How are you doing?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, it's our pleasure, George. George, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background before we get into our topics of discussion?
Yeah, I was born in New York City and Harlem Hospital, and grew up in Harlem, Central Harlem. And I went on to there was a brother that I always have to mention. His name was Ronnie Green, Captain Rock, and he asked me to manage him. And it was in the beginning of Uptown Records. And I wound up being one of the founding members of Uptown. And to be at a small company, you can learn the whole mechanics of a record company. And I went on to use those skills and work with Lloyd Williams and Vosa Rivers at the Harlem Chamber of Commerce, who created Harlem Week. So now I use my skills in arts and culture, which takes music as a part of that. And that's what I do.
Well, George, obviously, I want to talk heavily about Harlem. Harlem is a very instrumental city or borough. It has a tremendous amount of arts, culture, history, fabric. The list of famous people from Harlem is like a mile long. But in your opinion, growing up in Harlem, I believe for what you stated, What is it really like for people who don't live in Harlem to understand what this whole borough is about?
Harlem has always been a mecca of exciting artists, style, legacy, and history. Fortunately, to be so close to the Apollo Theater, I seen the greats of James Brown and those kind of guys, and I didn't know then that was going to set me up for later on in my life. But arts and culture in Harlem has always been amazing. And then with gentrification, the skills that I learned in the industry around the world came to my own community. So I had to get involved. And again, meeting some great people, Inez Dickens, Congressman Rangel, and those guys, it allowed me to get a foothold on what I need to do to give back to my community.
When you look at the talent base that has come from Harlem, is it just people that's from Harlem, or do talented people from outside of the country or other parts of the country, do they come to Harlem?
The funny thing about Harlem, some people today will move to Harlem and be every ethnic background. And you can't say they're not a part of Harlem.
Right.
But when I grew up in Harlem, it was definitely very Black and very artistic. A lot of just, that was just a lifestyle from doo-wop to hip hop. Everything was there.
Did you learn a lot of talent traits by just growing up in Harlem? I mean, like, it says like basketball, if you play against the best, it's going to bring the best out of you. So is the competitiveness in Harlem is a place that you really got to be on top of your A game if you're trying to get to the next level?
Absolutely. My life was very interesting. I was in the busing system as a kid. So I went into predominantly white areas at a very young age, as well as I learned fencing, in high school. And come bringing all that information back to Harlem gave me a certain level of pride and confidence. And when I homed in on it, I realized that we always set the trend. And I just built on that.
We're going to get into the music and your role with Uptown Records. But before we even get into that, is there any direct relations between Harlem, New York, and Uptown Records, the record company that you were part of founding?
Yes. Andre Harrell, founder of the company, was from the Bronx. But he always admired Uptown and, the style, the basketball, all of these things are arts and culture. And he saw the very stylish people, and he understood the marriage of what R&B was because he was a lover of R&B. And then he became the vice president, I want to say, of Def Jam with Russell Simmons. And then he came up with the brilliant idea of marrying the two together, which wound up being the birth of hip hop. And then he ran into Teddy Riley, Heavy D, and put out a string of smash records.
Now, even before we get into that, you just mentioned the birth of hip hop, but would it still be fair to say and accurate that hip hop came from the South Bronx or the West Bronx? I mean, Harlem can't take credit for that, or can it?
I'm not gonna be the one to say either one. I know that it was in the Bronx, and there were various people who were the founders, be it Kool Herc or Africa Bambaataa or any of these guys. I just know that it came out, and when you start talking about competitive, that's when it starts getting competitive.
Right.
But I just think the art firm birthed from there, and then it went global.
Now, when Uptown Records got started with Andre Harrell, and then you can talk about your involvement, was it designed just to be R&B, be hip hop? I mean, was there a type of blueprint and a vision of what type of music it was designed to put out?
It was designed to bring young people, to give young people an opportunity to be executives. It was fashion forward. It was breaking the boundaries of what concepts people thought Harlem was and taking it global. Models, filmmakers, smash producers, everybody came under one umbrella, and it was definitely very competitive. And the cream just had, whoever had the cream at the top, we exposed it and made it global.
I hate to keep going back and forth with this, but I do want to get this across. How much credit do you give Sylvia Roberts of Sugar Hill Records? Was that her last name?
Yes, Sylvia Robinson.
Right, Robinson.
Ton of credit, but which happens is that there were a couple of great people who started record companies, and Sylvia Robinson was definitely one of them. I didn't work with her directly, but I've heard amazing stories. She was a major artist herself and learned the structure of music and being an artist, working with a white company, and then honed her skills, her and her husband, and they understood that the culture drives the music, and they found a culture and made incredible records.
And Sylvia Robinson also is from Harlem, New York. And
yes, no, she lived in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
The company was founded in New Jersey. I had the pleasure of a guy named Big Hank, who was one of the members of the group, and I went to Bronx Community College with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that part of it, but I wasn't focused on music at that point.
And then
I was a consumer then.
Right. But then the food scene, don't you have a famous chef or famous woman who cooks? I don't know.
There were a host of those. They had a guy named Chicken Man that used to go around to all the clubs, and he would have a basket and serve chicken to people at bars and nightclubs late at night. And I was told that that's the guy who went to LA and founded Roscoe's.
Mm-hmm.
They had a restaurant called Adele's, Copeland's. They were amazing, authentic soul food restaurants all over Harlem that were tastemakers for the restaurants you see now in gentrification.
Right. No, but there's a famous woman currently. I just unfortunately I can't think of her name.
Sylvia.
Say that
Sylvia's
again.
the restaurant.
Sylvia's, yes. Sylvia's restaurants.
But what I'm saying to you, Sylvia was one of many back in the day.
Right. Okay. Okay, let's get now into Uptown Records. How did that all directly get started? And then explain your involvement with Uptown Records also.
You want me to start with the development of the company, or you want me to start with my development?
Start with the development of the company first.
Andre Harrell from the Bronx was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They were a rap group that performed at Harlem World, which was for Harlem was the foundation place for hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And Andre and Alonzo, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, they were on the foundation part of hip hop. And Andre in turn worked at our radio station doing sales. Alonzo went to work for Nia Records with the Arlene brothers. And then Andre went to work with Russell Simmons at Def Jam, and Fly Ty Williams, who started Cold Chillin' Records, and Russell Simmons and Andre, they shared an apartment and were coming up with the ideas for foundation of hip hop. And Andre, with the expertise that he learned from Russell, decided to start his own company, and he realized that he could be different by marrying hip hop and R&B. And then he got with Teddy Riley, who made, a ton of hits, and the rest was history.
Mm-hmm. And then now your direct involvement with Uptown Records.
Growing up in Harlem, there was a guy named Ronnie Green. Shout out to Captain Rock, childhood friend. He asked me to manage him, and I knew Andre and Alonzo. Shout out to Alonzo Brown, Mr. Hyde, and Dougie Fresh was teaching one of the guys in the group to be. He learned how to do the beatbox. So Alonzo told me to take the beatbox kid to Andre Harrell and see if he would sign him, because he was starting a record. He had a record deal from Gerald Bugsby and MCA called Uptown. And the gentleman didn't want to sign with me, but wanted to go directly to Andre. And Andre was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And he told me if I wanted to hang out with him, he'd find something for me. And that wound up turning into a guy named Albert Brown that turned into be Albie Shaw. He wound up selling 2.5 off the top. And my history began as a tour manager.
And this all started pretty much, what, in the mid-'80s, around 86, 87?
85, 86.
Oh, 85, 86, okay. Wasn't Heavy D the first artist to sign with Uptown Records?
Absolutely. At that point, I was just learning the culture from an Uptown perspective. The Harlem Brothers, who made House Party, everybody you could think of was there. Spike Lee, Chris Rock. It was one of the best times in my life. Everybody was just starting out and learning their craft. And we just all soaked it in, and we all wanted to be good at what we did. And you wake up when you love something and you become good at it.
Stan, I don't know if you're interested directly in this topic of hip hop and Uptown Records, but do you have anything you want?
I'm interested, but I'm learning.
You're learning,
so I'm learning.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. What's your take on hip hop, though, Stan? I mean, do you think it's not probably, you probably like jazz a little bit better than hip hop? I don't know if you're a big...
Well, as a genre that I listen to, but I mean, hip hop is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the undisputed largest music genre on the planet.
It is.
I think hip hop is it has every element of music in it. Jazz, gospel. I mean, creatively, they just, they use the samples from everybody. And you had all types of hip hop artists.
Well, the hip hop, though, has kind of changed over the decades. I mean, in the 70s, it was more of an underground sound, just kind of scratching the surface. It went through a stage, I guess, of commercialization during the 80s. And it looked like it really exploded during the 90s. And I guess Uptown Records, you would have to say, had a major impact, not just on hip-hop music, but, creating a new sound of hip-hop soul. We haven't even talked about Mary J. Blige yet. But the direct impact, would you say Uptown Records played a tremendous role in the development of hip-hop music?
Yes, I would say, and I have to say this, Andre and Russell, both of those guys made a huge opportunity to the culture, not only musically, but business, and confidence and drive. All kinds of people got an opportunity to grow in business from hip hop and R&B. And I can't say it enough how amazing that was. I mean, I've had a 34+ year career based on that, and I'm one of thousands of people across the country that has had that opportunity from music. And they've gone into everything, fashion, politics, you name it.
Was Uptown Records kind of competitor towards Def Jam Records in some area? It wasn't?
It was two different worlds. Def Jam was pure hip hop.
Okay.
And we created something new called New Jack Swing, was hip hop and R&B married together.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there was 3 black production companies at that time. Hush Production was first. Shout out to Kevin Haywood, who was, I think, the general manager or the president of that company. And Bobby Duckett, who was the gentleman who taught me touring. And I would go over there and get information from them. Def Jam was there, and then Uptown Records. So we were the first 3 that had major distribution for major companies.
Mm-hmm. Now, the role that Puff Daddy played in Uptown, I mean, he was part of Uptown Records before he got fired. How much credit does he deserve involved with Uptown Records?
Puff took it to a whole nother level. And even with that, he did let him go.
Mm-hmm.
But when you let somebody go from a company and you signed your artist to that label, you don't get the chance to take those artists to a new label.
Mm-hmm.
But Andre did that for Puffy because he just wanted him to grow. And people don't talk about that. You know, all they say is he got fired, but nobody gets fired and takes Biggie Smalls to Clive Davis. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, most
people don't know that.
But wasn't there some issues that Puff Daddy or Puff Diddy or P Diddy wanted to have Biggie Smalls sign with Uptown? There's no truth in that matter.
This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Puff made a song called "Excuse My French," dreaming of an R&B something.
Mm-hmm.
Patti LaBelle was a friend of Andre's. And he was saying some words in there that was not nice to say about a woman.
Okay.
And there were ongoing things with hip hop, with negative lyrics that Andre wasn't sure if he wanted to associate himself with,
mm-hmm.
which created friction because Puff was very aggressive on the artistry of it. And Andre just felt like, you know what? I'm not going to hold him back. Maybe this is it for him, the place for him. And, you know, sometimes you got to give your son some tough love.
Mm-hmm.
But he allowed him to go someplace else and use and Andre taught Puff everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was like his son, lived with him. And he took those skills based on what he learned from us and took it to the next level, which is what he was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And was his position at Uptown Records the A&R position? He
became A&R, then he became senior VP of A&R, then he became, he had his own label inside of Uptown, which was Bad Boy.
Mm-hmm. So again, when Biggie Smalls signed with Bad Boy Records, how did Andre Harrell feel? Because that was a major hip hop record that came out that year. Do you feel
Andre endorsed everything Puff did? Puff was bringing a new energy. We had already had 5-6 records on the radio and was winning.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta realize we had the Lost Boys. They were hot in hip hop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like we wasn't hip hop, but Puff started with doing A&R for Jodeci. Then he did Mary J. Blige. And then when he did the 411 album, it was undeniable. That record had 6 singles on it. I had went from tour manager to radio promotion. And 411 was the first record I worked at radio. Shout out to Toya Beasley, Benny Brown. They were the program directors on there. They heard You Remind Me. And before I got out the building, they played that record on the radio. And the rest is history. But the record was out for 28 weeks, and they played the mix show first with Red Alert. Shout out to Red Alert and Chuck Chill Out.
Now, Mary J. Blige, I guess you could say, you could confirm it, was the biggest artist or one of the top biggest artists of Uptown Records. And wasn't she a background singer, this rapper or singer, father, MC? She was
absolutely. But you got, Miss Mary J. Blige is undeniable. But I got to give my boy Al B. Short his props. 2.5 on the fresh record.
Right.
Al B. was sensational within his own.
Yeah.
They hadn't seen nobody like Al. And they both sold like 2.5 on their first album. Mary was more consistent than Al.
Right.
And took it to the higher levels. I mean, if you look at, we did something called Uptown Unplugged. Christopher Williams, Anthony Hamilton, Dave Hollister, all of those artists were on Uptown. And they went on to do great things. And that's why I say big shout out to Andre Harrell. It was a movement. And then Puff took that movement to the next level.
Yes. Now, the vision that Andre Harrell had for Mary J. Blige, because he has a lot to do with shaping an artist, I guess their sound and their style, or you have to shape yourself into the mix that Uptown Records wants to portray. Mary J. Blige somewhat is credited as being the queen of hip hop soul, which is something kind of new at that beginning stages. Did Andre Harrell have a lot to do with shaping the sound of Mary J. Blige?
Let me explain something to you. Andre Harrell was the head of the company, and Andre gave everybody there the opportunity to be all they could be. We would have conference meetings. Shout out to Sybil Penniston. She was the stylist who styled Mary. Shout out to Puff Daddy. Puff Daddy made the music. And Andre was the quarterback, and that gave everybody the opportunity to show their vision. So all of the executives at Uptown were amazing people in their own right.
Well, that's good.
And they all went on to do amazing things, more than people really know.
Well, that's a good clarification, because sometimes people don't know that other side, that, Andre Harrell is the big figure that people look at, but there was other people involved with it, as yourself included, that had a tremendous impact in Uptown Records.
That's why I'm on this call, because I'm a guy that doesn't really, I like doing the work, but if we don't tell the story, nobody else will. Jimmy Jenkins, who gave me my opportunity in radio, Brett Wright was marketing, Bob Celestin was the attorney. All these guys done amazing work out here. It's a ton of us.
Now, the deal that Uptown Records had with MCA, how did that whole deal come about? MCA Records, I believe?
They had a convention called BRE. In those days, you went to the convention, all the major executives were literally sitting in the lobby, and you could walk up to them and say, hey, man, listen to my stuff. Andre met Joe Bugsby. He played Mr. Big Stuff for him and gave him a compilation deal. Joe Bugsby was the president of MCA.
Now, again, Uptown Records, it branched out bigger than just a record label, because at one point, Andre Harrell, he was the executive producer of New York Undercover, that TV show back in the 90s.
Absolutely. We went into film and television as well. We were knocking down the doors. I got to say this, though. Fearless. Andre gave you the opportunity to be fearless and trusted you to do whatever job he gave you. Now, you had to be the best because somebody was waiting to take your slot. But again, that hunger that everybody had was amazing in that moment.
Stan, any comments or any questions again towards the topic that we're discussing? Or
Please repeat that. I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Did you say that? Was you asking me a question?
He was asking you to repeat what you were saying.
Well, I was asking you, Stan, did you have any questions or any comments that you want to ask the guests related to
I'm as always in listening mode and hoping that the audience is listening and learning, because this is a master class in success.
Okay.
And how you get there. It's not one person's, it's a team effort. But the leadership is very, very important. And leadership is not blowing its own horn, But without good leadership, you can't have this kind of dynamic growth. Leadership gives opportunity for others to evolve and become leaders and to move to the next level, to always take the baton and move it down the road. And so I hope that people are hearing how success happens so that they can become successful in their own right. And there's a lot less of the pettiness that people fall prey or victim to, if you will, because they don't understand what it takes to be successful. So I mean, this is a master class. I hope people are listening.
Yeah,
that's my
comments.
I
That's your
want to
comments.
chime in on what you just said. You're absolutely correct. And again, this is the reason why I'm on this call, is because it needs to be said. There was amazing people that came out of Uptown. I would be lying to say I was the one and all that kind of stuff. If you was at the front door buzzing people in, you got inspired to be somebody. Kim Porter, Sean's wife, was a receptionist. Uptown was amazing, beautiful people, style, fashion forward, and was Black culture.
And I guess, we have to obviously look at the beginning stages of Motown Records and other records that came before Uptown, how it played a role in shaping and giving particularly Black people the opportunities to somewhat get your foot in the door. And it looks like Uptown Records came along in a time when, R&B, you had hip hop, you had other forms of music, and it kind of gave different styles of music opportunities. Hip hop obviously played a tremendous role, starting off with Heavy D and the Boys, and they would come along to be one of the top successful hip hop artists in that era of the 90s. But I guess if you kind of got your foot in the door of Uptown Records, you knew you had a very good chance of going to the next level, somewhat of stardom. I guess the ball is more like in your court. It's what you do with it after you get the opportunity. And I think Uptown Records definitely had a tremendous role. And then shaping a different style of music. I mean, this hip hop soul of Teddy Riley and Guy, how they came, and then Mary J. Blige. It really created a new type of style of music that really was not created, I think. I just would have to say, in my opinion, it had created a slightly or dramatically different style of music that really was very instrumental and popular. And just want to praise out. I mean, and also, Stan, I don't know if you know Andre Harrell. He passed away a couple of years ago. We keep talking about Andre Harrell, but he's no longer living. But I think his legacy obviously is still around, and I just, again, give you a lot of credit and praise for accepting this invitation, George Harrell, for being on the show. And your involvement with the Harlem Community Board as the chairman of the Arts and Culture Division, could you kind of explain a little bit about that again?
After being at Uptown and learning what I learned there, most of the guys from Uptown went out to LA. And being that I was from Harlem, I decided to come back to my community. And gentrification started happening. And I got to give a shout out to Boza Rivers and Lloyd Williams, Harlem Chamber of Commerce, started working with them. I met Inez Dickens, city council person at that time. She's the assembly person. Inez put me on the community board. Shout out to David Weaver, who passed. He was the chair. But Harlem Week had to do promotions with WBLS, which I was already very ingrained in that company. So then I came up with the bright idea to marry my radio relationships with the community, sort of like a give back. And it worked. And after being a student of the community board and learning the process, Shout out to Cicely Harris and Shatique Mitchell. They asked me to be the chair, which was something brand new for me. And I wound up doing it. And that's currently what I do.
Mm-hmm. So, and then you also have what, Harrell Media Company as you the CEO, exactly?
Right.
Okay.
So I've done so many things. People call me to book talent. People call me for promotions. People call me for proclamations. Who they should give them to, that kind of stuff. And so the smart thing to do was to have my own company, because again, Andre taught us leadership and to own your own thing. And I created Harrell Media, somewhat, in the legacy of Andre Harrell. God bless him for the opportunity he gave me. And I do all kinds of stuff through my company.
Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about hip hop, and recently I looked online, and I guess DMC, if I can't remember his correct name, but he was part of Run DMC, but not Reverend Run or Russell Simmons, but the other co-rapper in the group, and he was explaining some criticism that he had about the current state of hip hop music, that it is really almost like the complete opposite of what it was in the beginning stages. And I'll explain that to you. It's like a lot of rappers today, and I don't want to put all of them, but let's just say a lot or more than the average, is just putting out lyrics with no substance. I mean, you can listen to a rap record, and almost every word is a foul letter word, and it's not promoting the same type of positiveness or some type of image that you would really feel proud of. In the beginning stages of rap music, it was fun, having a good time, expression, and you may have some rappers in that era that might have put out like 2 Live Crew, a lot of images you wouldn't want your parents listening to. But overall, the whole rap era from the 70s going into the 80s, somewhat in the 90s, was very popular, but there was like a message. I mean, if you take in 1988, 1989, when you had the violence and the East Coast rappers put out Self-Destruction, they were kind of fed up with the violence that was taking place, and they wanted to send out a message. Then the following year, in 1990, the West Coast All-Stars put out We're All in the Same Gang, again, addressing violence. And I guess what DMC was saying is, in today's era, you just don't see the rappers in particular. And don't put all the blame just on the rappers, obviously, but I just want to talk related towards hip-hop. They're not really taking the same type of, I don't want to even say appreciation, but I guess you can almost say that, towards standing up to certain issues or consciousness movements like Public Enemy had, I guess, and there's many. I'm trying to think of the other guy from KRS-One, Melly Mel with The Message. I mean, there was a generation of that time when the rap stars had great talent and great music, but there was something that came out of what they was trying to do to promote a different type of message. And just want to get your opinion and maybe clarification on how you feel about the state of hip hop today.
That's a touchy subject.
Mm-hmm.
I think the world today has so many issues, and for me, I think it's bigger than music.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Crow. There's so many elements that happen over the time. But I want to start with this. When an 18 to 24 demo in history, the older people never normally understands what the younger people are doing. You know what I'm saying? Elvis Presley. I think some of that is right now to support the younger people, but at the same time, gang violence, a lot of stuff that's happening in Black communities happen with white communities, but they don't publicize it as much. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a lot of things that are not talked about, and they glorify the things that we do negative, but at the same time, it's happening across the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that we all have to have a part to play, and everybody got to roll their hands up and be a part of the solution. And I'm not going to put the blame on no one person, but I think that there are young rappers who are talking about issues, but they don't put that on the news. That's my opinion.
Well, again, not so much even the blame, but just where we are at in the state of hip hop. Because I think
we're in a tough spot. I can't think of the name of the music off the top of my head, but it's promoting gang culture. Unfortunately, the police department hasn't gotten a real handle on gang culture, and the younger people are talking about what they seeing and experiencing, which the same way they did in those moments, but there wasn't gang culture back then. You know, when you used to see the rappers back in the day and they were in Harlem or the Bronx and the area looked terrible, they were showing their experience. And the young kids now are in the gang world. And again, yeah, that's wrong. But I think that we as the older people have to take a role in that too. And we have to all come together and try to fix it.
Right. Well, and don't get me wrong. I'm not. It may come across that I was trying to paint the picture that the beginning era of hip hop was clean and no problems. There was still some serious problems.
They had gangs back then.
Exactly.
Backstage.
Exactly. And I think that there's also another comparison, and you can clarify this. I know you don't want to go down the negative road, but it's still unrealistic. When you came along like Run DMC and Houdini, groups at that era of the 80s who were becoming successful, LL Cool J, they could sport the gold chains, the nice clothes, a BMW, a Cadillac, Escalade, and the drug dealers were in a position to almost emulate the same thing.
Can I jump in for 1 second, please?
Go ahead.
It was the other way around.
It was the other way around?
The rappers were people who were emulating the drug dealers.
Oh, okay.
The drug dealers were out here taking chances, and rappers wrote about those chances. They were really the people that were in the house or, you know, not a part of that culture. Then when the street cats saw the money that was being made, then they got involved. Excuse me.
Okay, so the rappers were emulating the drug dealers.
Yes.
Okay.
All the styling, and again, this is one of the reasons why I'm on these kind of calls. All the styling that you see of rappers, even in the beginning, they were wearing what the drug dealers was wearing. The drug dealers was wearing jewelry first.
Okay. All right. So I have
the boots and the snorkel coats and all that. That's what the drug dealers wore to sell the drugs. And then the hip hop people wore. And it became a style.
Right. So then when Run DMC come out with My Adidas, promoting a sneaker wear and their type of style, that was very common for drug dealers and other people who wanted to sport a fresh pair of gear to wear.
It's all the same stuff culturally.
Culture, yeah.
You know, but what Run DMC and them did was they took Black culture and made it cool in the white community, and they had marketing on top, brilliant to Russell Simmons and West Party Johnson. They took that culture and made it mainstream.
But see, again, here's the difference, and this is where interview that DMC did is still to me somewhat important, because he had explained that Run was a heavy weed smoker. DMC was a heavy drinker, but they never promoted what they were doing on videos. You would never hear Run DMC talk about how much blunts he's smoking to get high off her. And I think what DMC was saying is today's rappers on videos, whoever fault it is, you see them with, champagne, half naked women, what they want to do with the women's on video, other types of substances. They are promoting things on camera that the majority of rappers like Run DMC, who did things that they would tell you, like, Run was a heavy weed smoker, but you never heard Run talk about his weed smoking lifestyle on camera. So I guess that's what DMC was kind of critical of, how the rappers in some elements today is promoting things and they don't see it as really uplifting or positive. That's the only thing I'm trying to say. To give you.
I love this conversation because I want to jump in here. Mm-hmm. What happened is it evolved. Mm-hmm. First, you had NWA start cursing, so now it's okay to curse.
Right.
Then you got 2 Live Crew that actually start putting naked women out there, so now it's okay to have naked women, because it's shock value, and it creates another level. And what you see today is all of those elements have grown to a free-for-all for all of it. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
Right.
And it doesn't make it right, but I'm saying the palette of the community has become that. Mm-hmm. Of the culture or the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with what he's saying. Society has changed.
Okay.
And it at some point the scales tip, and so it is a free for all, not just in hip hop and rap, but for everything. Mm-hmm. People feel they could do whatever they want. There's no longer a community standard. Now I think the pendulum is getting ready to swing back down, because at some point, people can see this is not good, and so the pendulum swings back and forth. But this is a reflection of society more than I think it is a reflection of hip hop or rap.
Well, how much impact would you say social media has? Because doesn't that allow you to put
huge?
He just said it. Okay.
Yep.
You can see it on your phone now. You used to have to go to BET to see stuff.
Yeah.
And they can monitor it. That's the other part to it.
Yes. So again, it's unjustifiable or unfair to put the blame on just one particular source. Now, we can talk about where hip hop is today. We can talk about the good. We can talk about the bad. We can talk about the relevancy of it. And that's really the whole purpose. Where's hip hop today? Where is it moving at? And I guess in life, Stan, you've always said this in the past, things do change at some point. You can't expect everything to be the horse and buggy days. Television changed over the years from the beginning stages. Now sometimes you can see things on television that you think you would have to look at cable to see, but life does change, I guess, Stan. But you, as a executive producer, owner of Access TV Network, you still keep a standard that you feel is a positive image, don't you? I mean,
I keep a standard so that there's a North Star, as I call it. People, you don't know how far you're going if you don't have a frame of reference. Mm-hmm. So, social media is a cesspool.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it's one thing to talk about how bad social media is, but then don't do anything to try to, make a change. So that's why we do what we do, so that there's at least a North Star. We can't touch the world, but we could at least touch Hartford. So, so that's what we do. We bring hopefully some sense to things, and even the conversation here that you guys are having now brings understanding to what happened and what really is going on and what went on. And if someone does not, as our guest has said, if someone doesn't tell that story, if someone isn't out there saying that, then no one will know. You can't put the brakes on if you don't have any.
Right.
I think one of the things I have to jump in and say that, see, being that I'm older, I've seen these trends change. And people can only talk about the era that they're in.
Right.
And it's a bigger conversation. It's politics, it's music, it's gang violence. And again, they're not talking about the positive part. These young people are making astronomical money and owning their brands. They're not talking about that enough.
Well, the only thing I was saying, I'm not a direct expert. I just do some research and I guess the reality is there's more money involved in the hip hop game and music game today than it was in the past. That's just normal pattern of growth. But if you throw $1 million at an 18-year-old rapper, I'm just going to say a rapper, 18-year-old rapper, and the executives or whoever puts the music together saying, we want you to sound like this. We want you to talk about this. And here's $1 million to a guy that has no chance or he has no belief that he's going to get a record deal signed like that. And he just feels like, hey, this is what people want to hear. I'm capable of spitting out this type of lyrics. I don't really care, how it affects the community, how it affects the people. I just want to get famous and I want to make money. And I'm willing to do something at any cause.
Can I please jump in?
Go ahead.
That's not really what it is.
That's not okay.
What it is that young people will get on social media and they will do and say the things that will set the trend for younger people. Record companies aren't telling these kids to do that. They're looking at their social media numbers. And the one that has the numbers, unfortunately, which is the negative music, and people are paying attention to, they're going to give them the money to make it bigger.
Right.
It's not the record company. And again, it's society and what's driving the culture, and then people get involved.
So it probably used to be a time maybe the record companies had more involvement, but it's not the case now.
The business model has changed, and social media has changed. Social media changed the whole game. Everything's on your phone.
Right.
You ain't even gotta go to no label. Young kids now, they not even trying to be at a label. They owning their masters. Chance the Rapper helped Anita Baker get her masters. They're not talking about that.
Right.
And again, I'm not promoting no violence, but I'm not going to, I want to say that these young kids, they just need more guidance. You know what I'm saying? They don't have parents who are legacy people that's telling them how to spend their money.
I mean, there's a tremendous amount of responsibilities when you trying to get into anything, but particularly our entertainment industry, that people will say can be ruthless and cutthroat. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. That's when you get into that era of fame, fortunes, it comes with a price tag to it. Not to say that you have to go down a road that you don't feel comfortable with, but there's going to be a tremendous issues and pressure that's going to be thrown at you because everybody kind of wants what you have. If you want to have the best deal out there, you want to make a certain amount of money, then you're going to rest assured somebody else is going to want the same thing. That's like a drug dealer. You're not thinking you're going to go and make a lot of money and somebody else doesn't want to make a lot of money. So it's just, this is a legal form that we're talking about. And I don't want to turn this into a negative storyline, Stan, but I think it's real relevant because, again,
I don't think that you're giving a negative storyline. I think that the culture, the people who don't know or haven't had that experience, they read what's in the tab, what's written, and it's not always the case. And each generation and time period, things evolve, and we're in a very unique moment right now. And something that came to mind that I want to say too. When a person gets a record deal or they get $1 million, 10-15% of that is taxes off the top. Nobody talks about that. Manager gets 10 to 15%. Business manager gets 10% of that. So if you got $1 million, you really only starting at 600,000. And then they're wondering why people go broke, and nobody's teaching you that.
Well, you remember MC Hammer made a drastic mistake when he carried everybody with him, and it was costing him. But I think he made $50 million at one point, 90, 91. And he was hiring just about anybody that he knew from his neighborhoods or friends or whatever. And all of a sudden, a lot of the money that he had, it just dried up. I mean, yes, what you're talking about, taxes and your manager, is real important. But keep in mind, when you get money and you get success, you're going to have cousins that's not your cousins, friends who want to be your friends.
That was the second part of what I was going to say.
Right.
You ain't put in, you bought a car for yourself. You didn't put in, you had to get a house for your mother. You ain't put in, you got your best friend who you got to carry. You know what I'm saying? All of those are on top of that 600,000.
Right. And it doesn't take.
And you don't have parents who taught you how to do the business. So you learning it on a trial basis.
And the sad part is, and Stan and George, if you end up broke and make a mistake, it's hard to go to these family members and these friends and say, can you help me now get back on my feet?
Well, a lot of times those friends and family don't have what it takes to help you get back on your feet. And you're learning on the fly. People will understand and they'll learn, but it's a very costly lesson.
So you got to be real.
And again, you're not talking about a Carly B or Chance the Rapper who never even went to a label, gave his first album away, and is selling the records now independently. They're not talking about those.
Right.
There are young entrepreneurs out here that are really doing it.
And obviously we got to give the support and credit of the young people that are doing the right thing and are being very successful. I mean, P. Diddy is a very successful business person. Jay-Z is a very successful business person. You know, Jay-Z is a billionaire. I mean, so they have this great creative skills and they have talents and everything seems to come together. But we got to make sure that we are letting people, the media, know what the good is doing. Not so much, like you say, Stan, always and talking about
what I'm doing that.
Right.
I mean, let's just talk about Jay-Z doing the Super Bowl with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. We are knocking the doors down in certain areas, and we have to own those things as well as the negative press that they put out there.
And again, I think the whole point that DMC was saying is it all comes with responsibility. You know, you're doing the right thing. That's great. You get supportive. People are watching you. People are looking at you. And sometimes that puts a lot of pressure on you, Stan, because it's like if you do one thing wrong, you make one mistake, then somebody wants to tarnish your whole career.
Well, to whom much is given, much is required. I mean, you know, that's life.
That's life,
and it affects in everything. Everything this is part of being a human being on the planet.
Okay.
You know, there's always someone who thinks they could do a better job. There's always someone who disagrees, and you have to manage all those things. And so, those individuals who get good advice, good direction, good leadership. It would be very interesting to do a biopic on Uptown Records. Because you hear the people associated with it and how they become successful. People's success doesn't happen in a vacuum. And so, you know, the people that contributed and the passing of the baton and you know, just
right.
I hope people are listening, paying attention.
And again, George, I don't want to take anything away from Uptown Records in our conversation, because that's really was one of the main topics that I wanted to talk about. And I thought you did a real great job explaining the history and where Uptown Records had moved towards, and also talking about Harlem, New York as well. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinions on the state of hip hop, and it turned into probably a longer conversation maybe than it could.
I welcome all conversations. I think that all of this is under the same umbrella. And I don't think you saying anything negative. All you're doing is stimulating the opportunity to talk about issues that some people don't address.
Right, exactly.
I don't think you're saying anything out of the way.
Thank you, because that was the whole purpose. Again, you know, I didn't.
No, I know. I mean, again, I want you to be clear. You're asking the questions about what people say and do, and they're not wrong either. What I'm doing is just giving you the other side of the coin. Yeah, those things are true, but I'm giving you something like we talk about Uptown Records. I want to make sure that I say about what the staff was like at Uptown, because people know Andre Harrell, but there was a group of amazing people there. Yeah, there's negative rappers right now, but there's a bunch of great entrepreneurs there now, out here now.
All right. Good and bad always seems to exist in society. Do we promote the good more than we promote the bad, Stan? And I know you mentioned that.
Well, the bad sells records.
The bad sells records. That's what it is.
It makes people react.
Yes. The bad image is definitely sells, and then people look at it. This is still a business model. What are some of your future plans that you have with Harrell Media or with Harlem Community Board 10 and arts culture that you might want to explain to people?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
What is some of your future plans that you have with Harrell Media, and some of the things maybe in the future that the Harlem Community Board 10 is working towards with your involvement with the arts and culture committee?
Well, for Harrell Media, I'm getting more involved in the social media side of it, and doing what I'm doing now with you is, you know, I do have some information I think to share. So I'm making myself more visible for those things, because I think that some people just give one side of stuff, and I have a moral obligation to do what we're doing now. That's the theme for Harrell Media. For Community Board 10, Wilma Brown is my vice chair. She's very engulfed in politics. So entertainment and politics together, and she understands government. We are on our call. You know, Community Board 10 is the second Monday of every month, and we're on Facebook as well. And if you're in the arts and culture world, we tell you about grants and what's going on in the community, and we give you a voice to talk about what you're doing. And that's my goal, not to be driving the culture, to give a platform to community-based people that might not know about, other people who don't know about them, giving them the option to be heard. And that's what I try to do with arts and culture for Community Board 10.
Well, George Harrell, that sounds like a real positive way to end this segment. I mean, we talked about a lot in the business. Obviously, we didn't talk too much about the Harlem Community Board 10 and your involvement. But again, the whole purpose of the show was to talk about Harlem and definitely talk about Uptown Records and a little bit about hip hop, which we did. And I thought you were very elegant, very passionate, very realistic towards your assessments on Uptown Records, Harlem, the issues of the state of hip hop music. I want to definitely give special thanks to producer Kevin Harewood for giving the referral to you for me to be able to go out there now and book you. Couldn't have done it without him, because I didn't know you. I didn't know I mentioned I wanted someone to talk about Harlem, and then he referred me to you. So definitely give him a lot of credit. And again, I thought you were very, very sharp and accurate, and you clarified some things that I might have not known the whole side of the story, and I really appreciate that as well. So again, and then your staff person who worked throughout the week, Sean is her first name. I can't remember her last name. Sorry, but she was very professional, very helpful in arranging this interview together with you, and I definitely appreciated you giving up your time this morning. And if there's any last words you want to close before we end the show, the mic is yours.
Community Board 10, second Monday every month starting in September. And thank you so much to you guys for giving me a platform to communicate my opinion of the state of Harlem and the music business.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. There is a viewer. There was a lot of chatter online and stuff. So, but what's the link for Community Board 10? Somebody wants to know.
Can you hold on 1 second to me?
Yep.
I don't have the link. All you have to do is Google it.
Okay.
Community Board 10 Central Harlem. And we're on Facebook.
Yeah, he should be.
See if I can find it.
And he should be able to find that. He's the person. The person that's asking is pretty tech savvy. So, yeah, and it's not an unknown factor. So,
and let me plug this into Harlem Week is August 14th, 20th, and the 21st. We do a Harlem Week. We do about 110 events throughout the summer. Amazing stuff, and it's online as well.
Fabulous.
All
right, sir. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. God bless you and continued success, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Our pleasure.
Bye-bye now.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Yes. Thank you, Stan. I mean, again.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. You know. All right. Yeah, it was hard for me to stay focused on Harlem, though. I mean, again, I said, you know, when I found out he was part of Uptown Records, and then I wanted to talk about that heavily. Harlem obviously was part of the conversation, part of the show. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate some of the comments that you made, too, about the hip-hop music and the era that we're in. Because sometimes criticism is not always fairly distributed.
Well, that's why we're here to talk about that. Take a short break. We will be back, my friends. Stick and stay, morning talk. And we'll see you on the other side of the break.
Are Puerto Rican, Mexican, Peruvian, Indian, Bosnian, Italian, Irish, Jamaican, African American, European, straight, gay, Nigerian, transgender, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, short, tall, skinny, rich, poor, happy, sad. Some of us hold a PhD and others a GED. And though we may be Democrats, Republicans, or members of the Working Families Party, we all have escaped the plantation of party politics and become independent thinkers because we as individuals are more than a party. You see, independent thinkers come from all walks of life. And the one thing we all have in common is that we love, live, laugh, and learn in the city of Hartford. We are the constituents, and the government of Hartford belongs to us. My name is J. Stan McCauley. I'm an independent thinker, and I approve this message because it's time to stop towing the party line and vote for a candidate you can trust. You too can escape the plantation of party politics if you have the courage to free your political mind.
Oh, yeah. You know, elections are coming up. Remember, when you vote, you'll be voting for someone that's going to be working for you.
Hi, my name is Nyesha Garcia. I am from Brazil. I help HPU. I help families da Universidade de Harlem Community. Estou muito feliz em participar. É muito importante o engajamento deles padres e madres nas escolas de Hartford com seus ninhos, my children. I love helping family e HPU. Thank you. Gracias. Obrigado.
So my name is Nelky Maldonado.
My name is Ramon El Arroyo.
And we know that Hartford Parent University provides good services and resources to parents in our communities, which are greatly needed because a lot of times our parents, they don't know where to go, how to get information, and being part of this program is essential to them in being successful in their children's education.
And I think that parents should get involved in their kids' education because it's very important. Education is, I always believe, is a success in life. If you got a good education, you can be very successful.
So we encourage our parents to please come join the program, ask lots of questions, and I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed.
It's Morning Talk, Johnny Osborne. Wow. a lot of things happening here in the capital city. August the 6th, 2022, the Taste of the Caribbean and Jerk Festival is happening right downtown at the Mortenson Riverfront Plaza, Hartford, Connecticut. It's a free event. Go on down, have a great time with great company. And that means your friends and neighbors from around the greatest city on earth. Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star. Divided by water, together by culture.
I guess some good things in the capital city, not just the Hartford Jazz event. There was some type of
there's food truck.
Well, no, even economic development. Isn't some areas where the Aero Cafe
is gonna
be redeveloped?
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't hear about these projects or these developments that's taking place. I mean, that was sort of an eyesore for a long time, that Arrowhead Cafe.
Yeah, that's getting ready to kick off. There's always something happening in Hartford. I think it's important to remember there's always something happening, not only in Hartford, but everywhere. Mm-hmm. Because one doesn't know about it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Right.
And I don't subscribe to the idea or the notion that you have a responsibility to keep me informed of what you're doing. I think I have a responsibility to stay informed about what's going on.
Well, if that's related to what we was talking about earlier, when I was mentioning some of the hip hop stars or the entertainers, they have a sense of responsibility. I was quoting what another rapper stated, and again, whether it's fair or justifiable, if you become very successful. Now, providing information, what you're talking about is one thing,
right?
But keeping your standard up to a certain level, because everybody is human. It's just that when you're famous, you're under a microscope, and you do one thing wrong, and all of a sudden, you're the worst person underneath the sun. You know, I can't believe you did this. You know, but again, we all make mistakes. Some people make more mistakes than other people, but you know, that's a whole nother story of a second chance, third chance. I think you had mentioned one time you don't even believe in just a second chance. You think people should have more than a second chance. I mean, it's a lot of pressure when everybody gotta look at people's circumstances.
Everyone deserves a break.
A break.
Right. Bible says forgive somebody 70 times 70.
The break I have, though, I think, and Representative Douglas McCauley was on one time when we was talking.
I saw Big Doug yesterday, man.
You saw him yesterday?
Yeah, he was chilling with his family up on the hill at the state capitol, at the jazz festival.
Jazz festival, right? I haven't seen him in quite a while. The point he was saying one time, he was a guest on Face to Face a few years ago, and I talked about the second chance. And that's another thing, this whole reentry system program that they established on Windsor Street in Hartford. They think that's going to be real helpful. He said sometimes people are in need of a second chance, sometimes because they didn't get a legitimate first chance.
Well,
you may debate that, obviously.
Yes, I would debate that. Everyone deserves a second chance, period. And if they're truly repentant and remorseful, they deserve a third chance and a fourth chance. Everyone had a first chance.
You think so? You think everybody's given?
And people make choices.
Okay. So
no one born a criminal. You decide to become a criminal.
Yeah, but some people are born on the wrong side of the tracks. Maybe not a criminal.
See, there's too many people born on the wrong side of the tracks that make it. As long as one person makes it from the wrong side of the track, everyone else is condemned.
Okay.
You don't get a pass because you had a rough life. I push back on that with everything I have.
You don't get a pass, but do you get any I guess understanding maybe sometimes?
You may get understanding. If you want understanding, find someone that understands you. And no one has an obligation to understand your tough way in life. I often get accused of being elitist and this, that, and the third for taking that stand, but I'll wear the elitist badge with honor if that's the case. No one by default commands sympathy from someone else. Now, you may want it, but no one on the other side is obligated to give it to you. Just like you don't be sympathetic about everybody. I mean, that's an absurd notion.
Well, sympathetic and changing some of the dynamics of what the wrong side of the tracks exists, I think is more important. I would rather you be able to help let's fix the issues on the wrong side of the tracks more than just giving me sympathy. You can give me sympathy. I'm hungry. I need some food to eat. I'd rather work with someone that's going to help me get a job, help me save some money where I can be able to take care of myself. I don't want you just to feel sorry for me.
I think you would find that kind of help. There's no shortage of people willing to help somebody that wants to do better for themselves.
Well, it was looked at for a long time with just this recent reentry system program, but this building that they built on Windsor Street, that they were releasing a lot of people from the Department of Corrections with very limited resources, and they were having a difficult time making the transition. And they believe this facility is going to be a big help at helping people that's being released. And again, that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't need you to release me from jail or prison that's telling me I wish you the best of luck and I sympathize what you've been through, but I want to have a place to go to. I want to be able to get some things changed in my life. So that's part of the wrong. You can say, well, you got yourself into the criminal justice system, so it's on you to get yourself out of it. Or you can work what the Department of Corrections in the state is working towards in the reentry system place, the building, getting you plugged in. Don't assume that everybody and you can say you're responsible for your circumstances, but sometimes people don't even have the basics as a driver's license, as a basic identification.
Well, I think that's a different issue than what I was talking about. I say everyone has a first chance. That's where we went from. Now, that's not to suggest that somebody coming out of prison, there are a lot of issues involved in reentry, and there are a lot of areas where the system could do a much better job. But of course, that's another subject for another day.
But I got to debate you even when you say everybody has a first chance.
Everyone has a first chance, Jonathan.
You may have a first chance at life, yes. I mean, we can all adjust. You may have health issues, so that's another story too. If you're handicapped and things like that, so I don't want to go down that road. I think where I would debate you about everybody has a chance, and you say there's no excuse that there's too many people who come from the wrong side of the tracks.
If Bobby and Tiffany, Johnny and Shaniqua, all four come from the same side of the track, and two make it, then them being on the other side of the track is not a hindrance. So we use that other side of the track metaphor, or the silver spoon metaphor. Now, obviously, the person that had a silver spoon may have had a better head start. They may have had a better chance out the gate, but that's the anomaly. Most people in life have to do the best with what they have to move to the next level, and there are people who I'll leave it at that.
Well, maybe on, let's say, an individual level more than a societal level, because if you was to say that people who are born in Harlem has the same chance that people are born in Uptown Manhattan, some people may debate you. You could say if people born and raised in the poor 06120 zip code of Hartford has the same opportunity. We just had a
whole conversation about Harlem.
Right, I'm just using that as one example. Right.
Well, I'm glad you use that as an example. Your guest, right, our special guest this morning said that the cream of the crop and some of the most talented people known on the planet with brown skin came out of Harlem. Right?
And he knows firsthand.
Right. So I Uptown Manhattan, I think we are comparing apples to oranges sometimes when we have these kinds of discussions. You cannot take the talented 10th of those who are millionaires and compare them to the bottom 10th of those who are poor. And there's always this big, huge disparity because the hypothetical is built on creating the biggest disparity. How about the talented 10th out of those that are less economically fortunate with the talented 10th of those who are? And I guarantee you, these folk eventually will become these folk.
But that does sound like a better way to make the comparison of comparing.
Right. And who's to say that somehow because you are in quote unquote Harlem or in the north end of Hartford or in some other part of town or the country or wherever the case is, that somehow by default, because you don't have what quote unquote rich folk have, you're somehow worse off.
Well, I wouldn't say so much of a rich folks. I would say the basic things of a good quality, and I know you can say separate income from a good quality of life.
Right, what is a good quality of life?
Well, first of all,
what is good quality of life?
Yeah, a good quality of life could be many different things. You know, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about what you're doing, standard of living, I guess, is something a little bit different. That is more income driven, what you own and what you have.
And who's most responsible for how I feel about myself and how I feel about my or you? No, who's responsible for that?
It all comes down to the individual. If the individual is in the right thinking capacity, and I guess he's still responsible for that.
Yeah, I there's nothing I can do. That is within. This is where people live. They live in here.
Well,
and they live in their heads, and so it's up to people to seize opportunities. Now, if someone needs help, they can ask for help, and a lot of times, most people that want help, Jonathan, will get help.
Right.
Now, if there's a difference there than the folk who are waiting for someone to come and do something for them, and I'm not talking about people who are in the dependent class. There are always going to be people who are dependent on someone else. It is a given that those people are going to be taken care of. That we're not talking about folk who are incapacitated. We're not talking about infants and children. We're not talking about those who don't have the capacity to think for themselves. That's automatic. We understand society has a responsibility and a role to take care of them. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about people who are capable of thinking. They manage to do everything else in life. Yet when it comes to success, someone else is holding them back.
Or something. I don't know what it is. It may be their own self sometimes. Sometimes it's not even somebody else. Sometimes it's your own personal choices or what you're doing.
That's what I'm saying. You're making my point.
But I think you can't, to me, Stan, I think it's still difficult to separate some issues of the criminal justice system, the reentry system in your society, even with the good people. And I will say this, because I had put a tape online of the interview I had with Dr. Kuba Asagai from 2013, and I asked him on the show because we was talking about violence, and I was asking him. I made a couple questions about, isn't it unjustifiable or isn't it a bad way to look at people that are doing the right thing, the positive things, and to say that they can't make it or they are responsible for the people that make the bad choices, or that we don't give the good people enough credit towards what they're doing and ignoring them and focusing heavily on the people that's doing wrong. And his answer, for what I'm trying to remember, was, well, even though they may be doing good, they're still going to be affected by it, he said, to some degree, because it's going to be someone in your family, someone that you know. You may not be dealing with the direct, he said, physical trauma of violence, but it may be other forms of your consciousness, how you're affected by violence. Meaning I can't probably relate directly if someone gets killed by a police that I don't even know. It's like, okay, the police officer kills a young black person. I'm saying black in this case because we hear that a lot. So how could and you'll say it your own self, what does that have to do with my life? I didn't get shot and killed by the police. What role is it going to play in making my life any better or any worse? It's just something that happened. Now, obviously, if it's somebody that you know real well, you don't want your best friend to get killed by a police, or your brother or someone like that.
We don't want loved ones and best friends to die, period.
To die, period. But particularly getting shot 60 times wasn't accurate. I mean, there's some ways that
but see, you can't take. There's certain instances that are not the norm. And so, when we talk about people being shot by the quote-unquote police, how are they being shot, and what are the circumstances around this untimely demise? Is a police officer guilty of homicide? Is a police officer guilty of manslaughter? If they are, then they need to be charged and go to jail. Is the doctor guilty of manslaughter or homicide if the patient dies due to malpractice? If he is, he needs to be charged and go to jail. People, unfortunately, put themselves at great risk depending upon where they are and what they are doing. Now, if people want the police to change and they want certain things to be different in their communities, then they need to take their lazy behinds to a city council meeting, get involved in their government, which is theirs. It's not the elected officials' government. It belongs to the people.
Right.
And cause the changes to come about that change the standards. Government responds to us, not the other way around. You vote for people that become chairs of the Public Safety Committee. You vote for your mayor who appoints your police chief. You vote for your city council who create the policies. These policies don't exist everywhere in every town. They exist in towns where the folk are complaining, and they don't do anything other than complain.
Right.
So I no longer I'm not going to sit idly by and allow people to complain about stuff that they have a direct impact on when they do nothing to change it other than have committee meetings. So change is within the in the realm of those that are complaining.
That's the broad perspective on how you want to make changes is towards involvement.
It's the only way, because talking about it isn't change. Being mad isn't change. Being upset because a family member died isn't change. So you're talking about people being affected. Are they being affected in a way that they want to bring about positive change so no one else suffers from it? Or they just want to complain and march?
Well, ask yourself, what did the people or the community really have to do with the reentry system built or open on Windsor Street?
That's a separate subject from someone getting killed by the police, Jonathan.
Well,
but just as long as we're changing subjects. So what are you saying?
Well, again, you say people it's a separate subject, but it's still some type of policy that had to be implemented to get the building.
That building is now on Scarborough Street.
What's the difference though?
It's a big difference.
Scarborough.
Because it ain't gonna be on Scarborough Street. It could be on Front Street down in where there's people live over there. I'm sure they don't want a prisoner entry that's building in their community, but they don't really have much of a say, do they? It's not in the West End.
No, it's not.
Okay, so these are policies. These are political decisions. They're not made in a vacuum. They may be made where you are not. You might not be in the room where it happened. Right. To take a quote from Hamilton, you might not be in the room where it happened, but someone sat around and decided this is where it's going to be. These are political decisions.
Okay.
And if you exit yourself from the political process because you don't get involved in politics, then you will get whatever they leave for you to have.
Well, I think it's relevant towards the reentry system program because whether you believe it or not, Stan, and I heard former Mayor Eddie Perez made this statement a long time ago. It's like it's two things you have to address. You have to address the neighborhoods and the environment within itself, because if it's not intact, it's going to bring down people that's being released from the reentry system program. If they come back out of the reentry system program, prison or jails, to an environment that has very little or anything that fits their needs, what they could be capable of turning their life around, then they're going to be impacted. If you don't change the reentry system program of people being released and provide them with some better mechanisms, they're going to go back to the same environment and they're going to cause havoc. And who knows if they're not going to affect the environment beyond where it's at today. So if a guy comes back from the reentry system from prison or jail, he comes back and it's very little for him to get his life back on track. He's not even thinking about the big picture. He's going to do some things in the environment that's going to bring the environment down.
And this is why some people don't want this in their community for what you just said. Now, in quoting or stating what former Mayor Eddie Perez has said, and you have articulated and repeating it, You laid it out very nicely. Nothing else need be said. So now that we understand that, what are we gonna do about it?
Right. Well, maybe
what are we gonna do about it?
Well, maybe what's taking place maybe on Arrowhead Cafe. Now, you stated last week you didn't really buy into the rental building, apartment buildings that they're building, charging $1,800 a month. You don't think that's the best approach towards housing development, if I stand your quotes correctly.
I don't quite remember that.
We were talking last week about, you were saying this is not Boston or New York, that people are not going to stay in these rental apartments. At some point, they're going to want to move.
Eventually, yeah.
So, but that's a housing issue. That's still a little separate from economic development, businesses, and opportunities. That's someone having a choice to decide if they want to rent an apartment and pay $1,800 a month.
Okay.
I think what's taking place, and I don't know the whole picture about development where the Arrowhead Cafe is at, might mean bringing in different small businesses, providing services for people, providing another better uplifting image psychologically.
I don't know. You're jumping. I'm with you, but I'm not with you relative to what you were discussing about the reentry and the Arrowhead. So I'm trying to bridge that connection.
Well, I thought we was off of the reentry system program.
Okay, so as it pertains to this development, there's all kinds of reasons that people do development. I think that the general idea there is economic development that pushes toward, the grand list, so that Hartford has more tax money coming in. I don't think that they're building those buildings to provide programs for people. That I don't think that's what's at the center of the motivation.
Yeah, but if you change a distress area and it becomes more developed, more than abandoned, because negativeness can easily fall into abandoned properties, abandoned buildings. People could be doing a lot of things more easily in an area that's neglected. You take a development community, it changes, just like what you're saying about Scarborough Street. Nobody wants certain things on that street, and they're not going to allow it most likely to take place on that street if they have any say-so about it. You have another area where people feel like anything could be done to an area. It could be neglected. It could be ignored. And then you find somebody doing something destructive. It may draw a little attention, but very little still changes. So if you're developing your city, getting rid of abandonment, decay, neglect, developing something, it's not only going to beautify the place, but it's going to clean up the whole image if it's done correctly.
I think that's a given.
So that's a good sign, I think, towards changing things that you say. Whether people have anything to do with it, I don't know. Whether the average citizen have anything to do with that area being revitalized, I don't know for sure. Maybe that's a decision that came along in other areas beyond the everyday citizen. You say the everyday citizen needs to go down to City Hall and get involved in meetings.
Every citizen needs to go down to City Hall. The people who want change as it pertains to how the police are interacting with citizens need to go down to City Hall.
Yeah.
Their wanting change is admirable, but it is not enough. It's like, I want to eat. And, well, I'm hungry. And, well, I'll starve if I don't eat. And, well, someone need to get me some food. Well, maybe you might want to go in the kitchen and cook.
Right.
If you don't eat, you will starve. So wanting to eat is different from actually getting up and preparing something to eat, even if it's just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I think the average person does the basic. I think you'll be surprised if an average person finds. I know recently I lost my wallet up at the airport working, and I had to go get some things changed with the Social security things at my bank, driver's license. I had to get that done again. I guess take the process over again. So I didn't wait for someone to say, okay, I need my driver's license back. I tried to find my wallet the best I could, the best that I could. I was not able to find my wallet. So then I had to go out there and go to the Social Security building and go to
the trials and tribulations of losing what's in your wallet or purse.
Purse, right. So, but I'm saying if someone makes a mistake, I lost the wallet. I mean, nobody stole the wallet from me, so I got to get over
That's a mistake, and life goes on.
Right. But the average person, I think, if he's hungry, he'll find a soup kitchen or he'll find some place to
somewhere.
Yes. He's not going to starve.
Even if this kitchen is in your house and he got to break in and get him a piece of bread.
Right.
He's going to eat.
But I think what you're saying, the average person may not be engaged to go to City Hall and get involved.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse.
There's no, Jonathan.
I'm just going by the numbers, though. I'm not saying
the average person is not complaining. The average person is good. Most people are concerned about the person they see every morning when they brush their teeth. They go to work, they come home, they may go to the vacation, they may do a stay vacation, stay home and stay home type thing. Go to the park, see the jazz festival, and go out to eat and have a nice dinner with their wife or kids, and then they go on about their business. They're really cool. They pay their taxes, they pay their bills on time, and they're living their best life. They're not sitting around worried about the crime statistics, this, that, and the third. Now, there are people who do, and there are people who complain. I'm suggesting that the people who are complaining need to be the activators of change by getting involved, because that's how change happens. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Decisions are made by people elected to office. Those people are extremely powerful because they've been elected by a broad swath of our society. So they get to speak as representatives. Now, when you don't like what they're doing, you have to speak up. You organize some friends and family to speak up with you. Apart from that, these people who sit in these rooms will make the decisions that affect you. It's no more complicated than that. It's no more complicated than a group of 10 people work in an office and they're going to order out. So what should we get? Let's pool our money and get something good. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Now, what are we going to get? The people that speak up get to weigh in. Might be a big debate. Might all disintegrate and everyone say, bump this. I'm just going to get my own stuff. That's how we work as a society. So where the bus stop is, what buildings get developed, what streets get plowed, what streets get the street sweeper, who picks up leaves, what streets get leaves picked up, what's served at your kid's school for lunch, how long the classes are, whether the hallway gets painted or the floor gets buffed. All of these decisions are made by human beings. Someone reports to someone who makes a decision. But all of these decisions are directly the constituents' responsibility.
All right.
So if there's something you don't like about something, pick up the phone. If that doesn't work, go and have a meeting with these people. If that doesn't work, call up your elected officials. Change happens when people want change.
You said something a few months ago that Nyesha is the one that goes to the PTA and PTO meetings. You don't really go, but someone as parents represents your children that go. And whatever your reasons for not going to the PTA or the PTO meeting, someone is going. If there's a situation, to use that as an example, in your community, you don't really feel like you need to go to a city hall meeting or a committee meeting, but you may feel someone is more interested or cut out to want to be part of that, and then that person goes, and then you communicate with the person that goes. I don't know if you look at that as an alternative.
Well, my wife goes because she has a direct, not that I don't have a direct interest in my children's well-being, but she is directly interested, and she's very interested in education.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go to City Hall all the time, but I go to City Hall if I have an issue.
Right. It's there for you.
Right.
Right.
I don't go to my kids' school, but I'm not going to complain about that. That my point is in the complaining.
Right.
I don't complain about my children's school ever. If I have an issue, I will not be a complaint. It'll be me going down there. And it maybe I'm thinking in a vacuum, maybe I'm naive, whatever the case is. I can guarantee you it will be resolved before I leave, or I will leave with my children. The last time something happened with my daughter at the school she goes to, I won't mention which one, I was in line waiting to get her because, you have to drive and get the kids, waiting for school to get out. The official came out the building and came to my car to tell me what had happened. I had already known what happened because they called the house and told my wife. My wife told me. Now she's coming out the building telling me. I didn't even know she knew what kind of car I had.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Maybe they do that for all the parents. It doesn't matter to me because I'm not all the parents.
Right.
I'm my daughter's parent. That was cool for me. That's good. Okay, well, thank you so much. It's all good. My wife told me, yada, bada, bing, bada. Yep, I'm good. All right. This is a public school. This is not a private school. So, so if I have a problem with kids, at my kids at school, I'm going there, and if it's not resolved, bring my children to me now. I'm leaving.
Stan, my point that I'm trying to make is when people have something just like what affects you that you want to get resolved, then you'll go to the school. Just like an issue takes place in the community. Last year, whatever, when they was passing out the whatever they had towards the vaccines, waiting in line that you could get access to it. What was the thing that they had? They was giving away in Hartford. Tests. Was it tests? Yeah, the self test you could take at home. The line was a mile long in the wintertime. People will go to something that they really want to go to.
Absolutely.
If they're not interested,
they don't go.
They don't go.
That's not that deep.
Okay. So the people are not so much not capable of getting involved.
They choose
not to.
Right,
That's the whole point. Now, why they choose, we can.
I'm not getting into that headspace. I don't care why. That they do. I don't need to know why people make the decisions they make. I'm good with whatever decisions they make.
You don't see why is getting towards the root of a problem.
Jonathan, we spend too much time trying to figure out why other people think the way they think. Suffice it enough that they have expressed what they think, and we have to. I accept that that's where you are.
Right.
I'm good with that. I'm not here to change how you think.
So why is not needed to know why?
Why is always relevant, but my need to know why you do what you do. One is none of my business. Two, in what way does my knowing that even change anything? There's no need for me to get in your head space as to why you think the way you think. Who am I to even enter into that realm?
Well, it may not be maybe for you as an individual, but if someone is going into something constantly over and over again that's detrimental to their self and to their community, I think sometime, like if you have a situation of a generation of people dropping out of high school, well, you may say, well, why are they dropping out of high school?
We know why they're dropping out of high school. Because they're not interested.
Okay. So that's all you need to know towards the why, that they're not interested.
Right. So now the issue, Jonathan, isn't why they're dropping out of high school. The issue is why are those who are charged with keeping them there not doing what's necessary to keep them in school? Now that's a why that we can care about, because those are policies and decisions that are made. Young people are dropping out because they're not interested in what's going on in the building. That's not rocket science.
If you and I asked you this question the last time, if you move the dropout age from 16 to 18, would that change any policy? Would that make it more difficult for kids to drop out of high school?
If parents and adults don't get involved because they're not interested, what difference does the age make? Those are the kinds of, in my never to be humble opinion, those are the kinds of solutions that people come up with when they don't want to really implement what's necessary to make things different. Mm-hmm. They do superficial change. Mm-hmm. Well, if we move the age, then that many kids won't be dropping out at 16 because that is no longer a dropout age. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be better to find teachers and systems that actually engage the children and be successful at our charge?
The teachers and the administration is responsible for the dropout problem towards they're not able to fix it.
The teachers and the administration are directly responsible for the charge of educating our children. Mm-hmm. Everyone shouldn't be a teacher, and everyone should not be an administrator. Mm-hmm. The desire to do such is admirable. But if you can't teach kids, if you can't command the attention of your classroom and find a way to educate those children, then you should not be a teacher. Mm-hmm. Period.
Right. Just like
that's your job.
Yeah.
They do it in other countries. They do it in other cities. They do it in this city. Mm-hmm. Now, some teachers wind up being teacher of the year. Every school has a teacher of the year across America. Mm-hmm. What is that teacher doing so right that engages kids and they're excited about going to that class, but then they're not excited about going to other classes in the same building? Yeah, that's the dynamic ability of the individual who's gifted with teaching to do their job.
So even if the teacher is a dynamic teacher and motivational teacher, does the curriculum play a role? What the kids are learning? Do they feel interested even in the curriculum? Can a great teacher
can teach any curriculum? The curriculum is not necessarily the problem.
Okay.
Teaching someone about whatever it is can be made exciting or it can be made boring. Mm-hmm. You have great teachers who are capable of teaching kids who drop out of school. Right?
Right.
So if you take a whole class of dropouts and you have people who, Sam Cephas, who watches this program, has a gift for imparting information to young people. And Sam doesn't work with the cream of the crop, the talented 10. He works with the bottom 10 and turns them into wonderful students. Mm-hmm. He has a gift for teaching. You think the teachers would embrace Sam and hire him? Mm-hmm.
Well, the teacher has a role. I mean, you still don't want to let the parents off of the hook.
That's a different subject for a different time. The parents aren't in the classroom. The parents do play a role. But teachers teach kids. Now, you have parents who are very, very wealthy who send their kids to school and they don't see their kid until who knows when. Mm-hmm. There's no parent involvement. Those kids do well.
No, but I'm saying towards a combination of factors. I think you could say the teachers and the administration towards not motivating or engaging the kids to be interested in learning something is a big part of the problem. If there's other factors that you still, maybe that part of the problem could resolve the whole case. Maybe that could resolve if a kid thinks he can do something better without going to school. I asked you a couple of months ago.
Well, Jonathan, those kids are few and far between. They do not make up the majority of the population of kids attending school. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have that anomaly, few kids here and few kids there. They're not the kids in school, so they shouldn't be painted as such. Those are individual decisions made by a particular set of kids to go about getting money some other way. That's not kids in school. That's a kid, by and large. And they're one-offs. They're not the majority of kids. So they shouldn't be painted as such.
So the majority of kids are dropping out of high school because the teachers and administration is not making what they're learning interesting enough for them. That's the majority for the ones that drop out of high school.
I would suggest that the reason why children are disengaged and not actively engaged in deciding to drop out of school is because school has become something that is not interesting to them. That is what I am suggesting.
Right. And this is not a new trend, Stan. So it means this is a problem that's going on, and because it wasn't interesting to a lot of kids when I graduated high school.
How many kids dropped out of your school?
I don't have the statistical numbers, but there was enough.
What's enough? 10%? 100%? 50%? There's a high rate of absenteeism.
Yeah, well, there was a high
within school. That's not dropping out, though. That's
right.
Different than dropping out.
What needs to be looked at even more than the numbers of kids who dropped out or graduated is?
Well, that's a subject for Wednesday when Dr. Maya Bowen is here.
Right,
or you could ask educator. I'm not an educator, so I'm not qualified to answer that question. I think of myself more as an administrator. And as such, and I've been on record as saying this, if I was the mayor, things would be a little bit different.
Right.
Because I would walk through the school with a baseball bat.
Joe Clark
Get it together. I'm not talking about the students. I'm talking about administration and teachers.
Okay.
Get it together and make my kids the best kids in the country. Period. I don't care how you do it. Get it done. Call the union steward right now. Get the union president down here right now. Tell him I'm coming in the building. I'm going to hold people accountable for deliverables. I'll see you all in court for failure. I'll charge you for dereliction of duty and breach of contract. Your contract says that you're going to educate and teach our children, and our kids are failing. I hold you personally responsible. If I cannot sue you for failure of contract, I'll take you to civil court. Teach these kids. Well, maybe that's what they need. Someone to push them toward doing a better job.
Well, the Joe Clark theory in Paterson, New Jersey was very successful when he took the baseball bat. But like you just mentioned, he was attacking mostly the bad students. I mean, maybe you can't go by the movie itself. Sometimes a movie could be twisted a little differently. He did make some changes with some of the administration people and the teachers. But I'm only going by the movie. I don't know exactly what happened directly because a movie can be twisted. But your approach is not to attack the students, get rid of the bad students. You want to get rid of the bad teachers and even go up against the unions, which is very strong to go up against the teachers union. Attack that source. Almost like what it may not be the exact example, but so much attacking the drug dealers, attack who's bringing the drugs in. Some people use that comparison. May not be the same thing towards what you're talking about.
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
Your approach.
Anyone that's standing in the way of educating the children of our city need to be removed. Period. I don't care who they are.
And if you can get them removed through the teachers union, that would be a strong policy change.
Better to work with me than against me. But if I was in charge, but I'm not.
Yes, you would have to be what, the superintendent or the principal? I guess.
I think the mayor has that. I could be the mayor and do that.
You could be the mayor and do that.
I'd be the mayor. The superintendent obviously has that authority, but the superintendent is a political position, has a lot of factors. But I believe that if you have a mayor who feels that way, that gives the superintendent a lot more wiggle room.
Right. This is what's needed.
In my never to be humble opinion, the children need to be the first priority of the city. Period.
And then when you start from there, you branch out to other
Everything
areas.
else falls into place. The children need to be the first priority. The children of the city are the city's first priority. every decision affects children. So how will these decisions affect the children in our city? That needs to be the starting place, and then you go forward.
Right.
The chief factor shouldn't be how much money it's going to cost or how much money we can save. If you do things efficiently with the children at the center, saving of money will become a windfall.
Well, you hear so many times sound bites that we're doing things for the children, utilizing the children more as a scapegoat, that we need these programs and we need dollars because the children education or the children's future is at risk. So you hear that constantly, Stan, that politicians, certain educators do advocate the lip service that we need more for the children.
Right. So where's the return on that?
Yeah.
Where are the success metrics for the children? How come our children why aren't we in the news as the Hartford miracle for children at the top in a public system?
Well,
if Hartford students were at the top, if every school in Hartford, public schools, was a top school in the country, we would be making news. Would be in the news. Once again, Hartford emerges as it would be in the news everywhere.
It's not Hartford, but I think Bloomfield made some changes, and they're not nowhere near the top, but they kind of moved up from the bottom to a little bit better. They had some major issues towards their educational standards.
I can't speak.
Yeah,
to
but
that.
I'm just using that as example. So it has been, but that's not that far. What I'm just saying, because a lot of parents and children from Hartford moved to Bloomfield. So
well, that's true, but I'm concerned about all children in all schools, but the ones here in this city are the ones that focus the most. So
well, again, if you was mayor, that's
right. I'm not in charge of nothing.
Yeah. So it's hard to do what you think is needed to be done.
Right. I have sovereign control over my own kids.
Right.
I make sure my kids do well, but I don't have that kind of control over someone else's kids.
But the whole point is you think the problem can be fixed, though. It's not a far gone.
Any problem is an opportunity for solution. Any problem can be resolved and therefore fixed.
But certain measures have to be done sometime. If you're doing something the same way, I think those teachers unions are very strong, and it's
teachers unions protect the teachers.
Protect the teachers, though.
Right.
So trying to get rid of a bad teacher is a tremendous. I guess you probably would have to be the mayor to go up against the teachers union or the superintendent if they're that strong. To get rid of bad teachers. I mean, I don't think teachers.
I think the teachers work for the superintendent. I don't think they work for the city. They may be city employees. I don't know. To the extent that they can. See, I think every city employee works for the mayor. But I don't think that teachers are included in that. If they were, I'd have them reassigned to my office and then fire them in the morning.
So who do teachers work for then directly? The school system?
They work for the Board of They work for their direct employer, I think, would be the superintendent. Everyone, I think, within the school system ultimately works for the superintendent.
But they have a teachers union that represents
Well, teachers union represents them. They don't work for the teachers union.
No.
The school has a contract with the teachers union, has a contract, and that contract extends to the employees.
Well, my point about the teachers union is if you are a teacher and you're doing an inadequate job and you try to remove me, I can go to my union and say, wait a minute, you can't
It's in the best interest of you to go to your union, but we can change the best interests. Most people do what's in their best interests, and so do groups. So you change that dynamic. It's now in your best interest to get rid of the teachers who are going to bring your union down.
Okay.
Your strength will not be the numbers. Your strength will be the teachers who are successful.
But again, until the children of Hartford become that top priority and people who see it that way, then it's very unlikely people are going to take the measures that you just. And that right now we have a mayor that's in office now, so. Sometimes let's not.
His priority is not the children. That's all. It's other things. It shouldn't be. I mean, his job is he's not the superintendent. In fairness to the mayor, he's not the superintendent of schools. He's the mayor of the city. There's there's a firewall between the municipal and school board, the school, to make sure that it doesn't become politicized.
Stan, I still say, and I bring this a little bit to the hip hop movement. I think there is an interest and maybe a design to keep kids inferior, uneducated, and really another statistic towards high school dropouts, other problems. There's a certain element that likes to have this scenario in place.
If one can identify that as a real impediment, then one has now been alerted to it. Therefore, it can be mitigated or circumvented. Knowing that the system is against you is great. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
What are people going to do about it other than be mad? So, if it truly is a system, if it's truly a machine that's designed to keep you where you are, then there is probably very little that you can do about it. But as long as you can elect officials, and officials have the power to make change, I would submit for people's consideration that it's not a foregone conclusion that you can't make change.
Right.
So change is not coming about not so much because of the machine or the system, but because people who think they know what that change is won't do anything about it other than talk. It might never be helpful.
Well, if it's a dirty job, sometime to do the dirty work, you're gonna find very few people want to get their hands dirty. Go up against friction. If the job is already intact, in place, and it's an easy job, then you'll have a lot of people who want to get involved in the easiness of the job, the dirtiness of the job, the hardness of the job, the sacrifice of certain things. That's the harder part, to get more people involved.
Amen.
With that aspect. It's like, okay, you put a job availability for a job with low wages, long hours, grunt work. You may not have a lot of people apply for that type of job. You put a nice paying job, good benefits.
Don't have to do nothing.
Don't have to do nothing or very little.
Right.
You'll have a mile long of people waiting for that
right.
job.
Want someone who can watch the button. If the button turns green, call me. That's your whole job. It's the 401k. There's 6 weeks of vacation. The job starts off at $100,000, and you have full medical. But you gotta watch the button. If the button turns green, call me. And it's as if the button turns green, I mean that the dam pressure is building up. It could explode the whole dam. So there's a lot of responsibility. And so that's a job a lot of people might apply for because you really had to do a whole lot.
Yeah. I mean, people sometimes don't, they want the problems to go away. They just don't want to do the dirtiness of it to get the problems away.
This is where folks like myself come in. What is your solution to the problem?
Yeah.
If there is no solution to the problem, then you can leave and come back when you have one. Because we're not going to talk about the problem. It doesn't. You don't. The problem doesn't need to be explained. I think I made a wrong turn back there at the fork. How do I get? I'm lost. Okay. We don't need a 6-month dissertation about how you are lost. We know that. What we need is to figure out how to get you back on track. That's where people come short.
Right.
So how do we fix this? That's always gonna be my place. How are we gonna fix this?
Yeah, I mean, everybody would like you said, you don't want to just talk about why we need to get something done. You want to get people, I guess, involvement.
Right now, I'm more than willing to entertain the ongoing discussion about how we fix it.
Right.
I'm not willing to entertain the discussion about what's wrong. Because if we're talking about how we fix it, then we can say that's doable or not doable. If that's not doable, then now what?
Mm-hmm.
So that we're working always toward the fix.
Well, I think the work part is the key. It's like, I can work with someone. I got my car that needs to be fixed. You know, I've got somebody that I need some help. So you're willing to come help me. We can debate what I should do or what I shouldn't do. But if you're not going to be willing to help me, then I don't need you just telling me that, your car is not running right.
I know it's not running right.
I need some help.
Right.
And I think you want people staying even in your situation. You want to see some people help you. If you run for mayor or you become mayor, you still want the community behind you.
Right. Though there is I'm not running for mayor. Just so folk totally understand that. No.
Right. Mm-mm. So you have no plans at this present time to want to run for mayor?
No. Mm-mm.
And I got to be honest, I think it'll be very difficult to beat Mayor Luke Bronin the way that the city is moving. Not just you. I think it'd be hard for anybody to defeat.
If Mayor Bronin runs, he would be extremely difficult to beat.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way to beat him, but it would be very, very difficult. Very difficult to beat the mayor.
And then even who could defeat Mayor Luke Bronin? I mean, if there's a way, there has to be an individual candidate too. Former Mayor Eddie Perez couldn't do it the last time he ran. You were not able to do it. What's the other guy? Brandon McGee was not able to defeat Mayor.
It's hard to defeat an incumbent, and it's hard to defeat somebody that has the capacity to raise $1 million.
$1 million, yes, that's very hard.
Right.
Because not too many people can come up with that.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. And I think the belief of the city is moving in the right direction.
The city is by every objective observation, the city is moving forward. I know many people who would challenge that. I would suggest that the city's not moving forward in ways that they would like to see it move forward. That does not mean the city is not moving forward.
Yeah.
And so one has to be honest. There are people who love the direction of the city. And as long as those people are calling the shots, it is what it is.
Well, you see the thing, even the mayor could offset even the public safety homicide rates where Hartford is going in the wrong direction. But if you got so much momentum and you could promote the city in other areas that's moving in the right direction, Mayor Luke Bronin even has the luxury of having a high homicide rate of crime going higher over the past few years and still get people to say that the city is moving. The public safety issue of the city alone is not enough that you can throw at Mayor Luke Bronin to say that you could use that to defeat him, because the city is moving in other areas. Now, I could still debate some other areas of where the city is still not going strong at, but when you have the commercial advertisements that he can get on television and highlight development, he did an excellent job the last time with the commercials, and I just don't see where you can corner him. As you would have, like you say, there's probably a way that you can do it, but it's going to take a certain strategy and a certain opponent to be able to do that. And public safety alone right now wouldn't be enough to defeat Mayor Luke Bronin. That's my opinion, though. I could be.
I right now I would have to concur with your opinion.
Yeah,
I think that's very accurate. Yeah,
I mean, he has the machine. You got to look at that as a fact that the Democratic Town, they have the Democratic Town committee, the Hartford Democratic Town Committee. He's very strong. They're going to definitely support him. He has the money, the machine. He's still known. I mean, even though he's a newcomer, people know of him.
He's not a newcomer anymore.
He's not a newcomer anymore. So, again, he would almost have to defeat his own self, or something dramatic would have to happen. But again, public safety is just not going to be enough.
As long as he desires to be in office, I believe he will be.
Mm-hmm. that doesn't mean that people shouldn't run for mayor, because the odds is unlikely that you're going to defeat Mayor Luke Bronin.
Someone has to run against him. That I don't think will be a problem. I think there will be plenty of people who run against him should he decide he wants to run for mayor.
Right.
A third term.
Well, it's certainly not going to be a Republican. So whoever runs,
there will probably be a Republican that runs against him.
But they wouldn't have a chance on winning.
Of winning, very little chance. Very, very little chance.
Isn't that unique how Hartford, the last Republican mayor was Ann Usello, I believe, as far back as 1971. The last time you had a Republican mayor.
Hartford is a Democrat, is a Democratic city. So, I mean, because the Democrat Party controls the apparatus of power, because they are this a one-party town. There's plenty of one-party Republican towns too. So anytime a party controls the town, it's not likely that it's just very unlikely, because the party has interests.
Right.
You're really running against the party, not a person.
Right.
The party is what you're running against. And so there are a lot of interests to maintaining the current leadership, because there are a lot of people who have connections to the current leadership. So if the leadership changes, there could be change in all kinds of things. The direction of the city can change. The what's important to the new administration may change. The focus changes, and therefore interests change. And if you are getting ready to do some development, development could be destabilized with an incoming administration, not because that they're ignorant. I mean, not because they're not smart in a particular area, but they're ignorant of the ways of what's going on. And so they may want to do something differently. All these things all create instability in an arena where people like stability, or quote unquote the status quo. So oftentimes you hear people talk about the status quo as a negative. But everyone likes order and a certain level of predictability in your day. You like the status quo on the highway.
Right. But you say it's the Democratic Town Committee or the machine, but doesn't it still come down to the registered voters? I mean, you still, as
most
a registered
voters are Democrats.
Right.
So there may be some fighting among the party members for supremacy. But at the end of the day, the party will get behind a singular person and move them forward.
Right.
And even if someone steps outside of the party because they're angry or whatever the case is, once the party moves forward, they're an outsider trying to create change, and the party comes against them. It's very, very difficult to beat the incumbent.
Well, the whole process then is you get the Democratic Town Committee, the Democratic Town elections first. The party elections first. Then at some point, the Democratic endorses who's going to be the candidate for the upcoming November mayoral election, or even the governor's election. So if you don't get in, if you don't win the Democratic primary,
well, there's only a primary if there is a challenge within the party. Like John Larson does not have a challenge.
Right.
I mean, there's someone challenged, but he had to get petitions in order to do so. So Connecticut has never had an incumbent in Congress challenged.
So it's almost a lock then, because you now have to run as an independent.
You're not going to beat the party.
Yes.
Very, 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 very difficult. Lowell Weicker did it, but Lowell Weicker was not an unknown quantity. There's always, Donald Trump did it. Ross Perot almost did it. But it takes, so many different things have to be aligned for something like that to happen. It's not impossible, but very unlikely.
So people like Congressman John Larson, he's winning to become reelected so much.
Running.
He's running, but he's gonna most likely win as a well-known Democratic congressman in Connecticut.
Yes.
Is it so much that he's doing a great job and people buy into him, or there's another factor? I'm wondering.
I'm disappointed in his response to the African American Alliance, but I'm just one guy.
Mm-hmm.
By and large and overall, he is seen as someone who is doing what his constituents want. There's always going to be constituents that are not satisfied with a particular position.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't please everybody.
Right.
But the majority of people that are in his congressional district are happy with him.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's not done anything so egregious that he's going to be voted out of office.
Mm-hmm.
He may not get certain support from certain people, but that's not enough to you know, remove him from office.
Right. Well, they always say well known. I mean, I don't know how much attention you're paying towards the governor's election. There's a primary coming up. If they didn't already have the primary, they have the primary coming up in August.
I don't think there's a primary, a gubernatorial primary. There might be, but I don't think so. No, I think all of the governors. No, it isn't.
There's no
the Secretary of State has a primary. I only think in.
Well, there's some convention or something I thought was coming up in August. I don't know.
The primary is coming up.
The primary, okay, but it's not the governor's primary. That's already been endorsed.
There would only be a primary for governor if the party had determined that they don't like him and that there's someone within the party running against him.
Okay,
that is not the case.
So the Democratic endorsed.
He is the He is the party's endorsed candidate. Mm-hmm. So there will be no primary, to the best of my knowledge.
Right.
And neither will there be a primary for the Republicans. So the race is between the candidates for governor. Now, Stefanowski and Lamont are not the only candidates for governor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Aaron Lewis is running on the
Green, some other party. It's not the Green.
Libertarian.
Libertarian
party, and there may be other people running, but they're not name. They don't have the name brand penetration within the psyche of most of the voting public, so folk won't know them. They can't compete with the kind of money that the Republicans and the Democrats can throw out there. And Lamont's commercials are they're as good as they get.
Well, keep in mind it was a close election 4 years ago, and projections is Lamont is leading in the polls. I'm
not surprised.
But this could be another close election, or it could be easier. I mean, it's hard to gauge right now.
Right. I mean, I will say this. I know you've reached out to Bob Stefanowski on several occasions. And I have heard back from him. I mean... You have or have not? I
only heard back from him once, and he said he was not ready to come on the air at that time. And I reached back out to him several different times, and no response since the one time that he did respond to me. So he only responded back to me once in the beginning stages, and he hasn't responded back to me after at least 3 or 4 more attempts.
And this is how long ago did you reach him?
The last time I reached was actually last week. I reached both to Governor Lamont and to candidate Bob Stefanowski. I said, let me reach out to both of them. And haven't heard back from either party, to be honest.
Well, I did hear back from the governor's people.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
So you put a response out?
I did not.
So that must have been the response I put out then.
It could be. I don't know. They reached out to the Alliance. So I don't know. But an effort was made to reach out to me. My point in bringing that up is that there's a big difference between Lamont and Stefanowski.
Right. Yeah, I called the radio.
It's not like there's a whole lot of black folk doing media type stuff like we do,
Like,
it would seem a no-brainer.
Well, if Stefanowski feels, again, what I was told is that you're not saying he's written off the urban votes, but it's unlikely he's going to win the 4 to 5 urban cities. I heard some of the radio announcer told me he has opened up an office in Bridgeport, and he thinks he has a chance of winning Waterbury, but it's almost unlikely that he's going to win Hartford, New Haven, and even Bridgeport. I don't know about Stamford so much, the other large urban city. So,
well, with the outreach effort that he's making, he won't.
He won't. No, I mean, he just now unless he just feels like okay, he got to spend his time. I guess as a candidate, you got to spend a certain amount of time in other areas, and maybe he's targeting the other areas that he came close to winning. If he didn't come close to winning in the urban cities, then they may feel there's other parts of the state that they want to spend their time targeting and see if they can capture those votes, and that would give them the 40,000 for what this radio announcer told me that he lost out on. But if he got one of the urban cities, particularly if he got Waterbury, if Stefanowski won Waterbury and Bridgeport, that would change dramatically. So just opening up an office at Bridgeport, that might not be enough, and Waterbury could be a swing urban city vote. He may pick up some numbers there, but he certainly hasn't, like I said, responded to the African American Alliance or to me. And that message that I sent out to Lamont must have got through to the staff, and then they responded back to you. I'm just projecting that's how it happened.
Could very well be.
Because there was no other way that they could have contacted you. Like somebody else from the inside did, but I'm trying to figure that out. I can't seem to figure that out, but I know I did reach out to both of them last week, almost simultaneously. So that is a good sign that Lamont staff did respond back to you.
I can say I know that the governor's people have reached out to black media across the state.
That's good. That's very good. Then, I mean, it might be happening because it's an election year, but at least they've done it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you expect these things in an election year, but you do what you would expect that the Republican candidate would be doing the same.
Right.
But
right.
he has not.
Yeah, he's been.
So I only point to that to say, these things matter, and at this stage of the game, you can't write off black vote simply because you're a Republican.
Yeah. I don't know the whole ins and outs, only going by what he's done, how he showed his actions.
That's all we can go by with any of them.
Yeah. They have a campaign staff. He has his campaign manager.
Right.
There's other people involved in the decision, but he definitely has a good role and a say.
Well, I don't know who's doing Lamont's commercials, but those commercials are. They're as good as they get.
Oh, okay.
They are as good as they get. Now, I'm exceedingly, unapologetically pro-life. But Lamont's commercial on Choice,
right?
I mean, that's how it was so good. I mean, it almost got me. I'm not making my decision yet, but I mean, it was perfect. It was perfect, perfectly well stated, and that's what Stefanowski's up against. It's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult for him to beat Lamont, I think.
Well, anything is possible. Let's see if we hear back from both candidates again towards a guest appearance. That was the whole purpose, just to have them as a Zoom guest appearance. It's not enough. Y'all want to invite the candidates to come to the African American virtual, alliance meeting. That's fine too. But the whole purpose was to have both of them come on for a Zoom guest appearance. I mean, the icing on the cake would be a debate, but and I guess they will have debates.
They will have debates.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect their debate to be here,
right?
But they will definitely have a debate.
Yeah, you got to establish some political clout. I mean, the governor's race is a big race. It's a lot at stake. And, you know, he has executive order power in certain areas. There's a lot of things that people got to look at towards this governor's race. And it will matter. I mean, you got to take seriousness of having who is the governor as the right governor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the governor shut down the state a couple of years ago. Some people might not like how that was handled, but he has the executive order to do that. So it's a very powerful position. You know, however you feel about him, direction of the state is certainly a position you don't take lightly. And the legislators have a role too. You know, don't forget them.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. And I don't have any guests lined up, not just for next week, but for August. So everything is kind of open. Sometimes I like to book guests in advance. So I don't know. I'm kind of looking to get somebody from the elected office level for August.
Mm-hmm.
The governor would be an ideal choice that I would love. But if not, then we'll just have to work on whoever I can get to come on. And still haven't forgotten about the banking individual who I would like to have come on the show. That's going to take some work to get who I really want. Sometimes I can get somebody to come on, but sometimes it's a certain level of person that I'm looking for, and it just takes a little bit more time and effort to get that particular person on. Because I think that's still an important show. You have any ideas or any suggestions of people that you would like to see?
As it pertains to banking?
Well, no, just as a guest.
Just as guest?
Yeah, I think you did mention Mark Corber, though. I had him on twice. You said the article he wrote about adding more city council people for the city of Hartford.
Yeah.
And
well, you know, if I had to, I'm always. I like to see who you get. So you know, I don't necessarily have anybody that I am.
Well, the thing with attorney Mark Corber is he wants to focus on regionalism. I had him on. We had him on two different times.
He's an advocate of regionalism.
Yeah, and I don't want to just. I mean, it's an important topic. It's an interesting issue. But I want something different. And I don't.
Yeah. We've talked about that.
We've talked about that already.
But that's in the can. Yeah.
And how he feels about adding more city council members. I don't know if that'll carry a full 50 or 60 minutes.
It could be. I don't think that his view would be that of, you know, he's an advocate of regionalism. So to him, it's a moot point how many people are on city council because they don't have the resources to do anything. So what difference does it make?
Exactly.
I think that's kind of like his view. But he doesn't live here, so he don't have to worry about that.
No,
it does make a difference. Maybe not in the grand scheme in regionalism, but it makes a difference for how things happen here. And so that's of not real interest to him.
Yeah, he's a real advocate of regionalism for the greater Hartford area, and he thinks it should be done here more than even Stamford or Bridgeport. That was the question that I asked him. And, you know, both of you think it's likely that it's going to happen. You just don't know when. That you're saying Connecticut is going to be forced to regionalize. And
at some point, I mean, unless it behooves certain entities to keep the 169 little towns. Because there is a certain value in having, you know, all these little towns with such unique, you know, borders. Because you have 169 different little pools of people that represent cross sections of America. So what happens in those towns is a good way of seeing how it'll roll out across the country. So, you know, there are people in big positions who do all kinds of studies and research about how humans behave and how citizens behave, and you know, nothing is by accident.
Yeah, it's a real, interesting topic. You know, relevancy, important topic. I mean, I don't follow it like attorney Mark Corber does. honestly, to me, it's almost like I could take it or leave it.
Yeah.
You know, if it happens, I could get behind it. I could see some benefits. If it doesn't, then move on.
Mm-hmm.
But he feels it's desperately needed to change a lot of things about the region and even the city. But, you know, I don't know how much power or influence he really has. He certainly has a voice. But other than that, I don't know how far it's going to go anytime soon. But let me see who I can line up for next week, at least work on that.
All right.
And then look forward to if you're going to do some shows this week.
Well, we'll be here Wednesday. Dr. Maya Bone will be here along with Luis Delgado.
Mm-hmm.
And who else will be here? That's it. And then Friday it'll be myself and Cleo. May have a guest drop by. That's about it. Yeah, so Big Lou will be here at 8, actually. He's coming in.
He's coming in back earlier now.
He's going to come in early.
Usually it's Dr. Bowen at 8, and then he comes on at 9.
I've been scaling down some of my on-air commitment. I'm trying to scale down my on-air commitments. I saw him in the park. He's because he did do a show last week. So we'll come on in early.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. Y'all didn't do a show. I thought y'all was going to do a live show. Then
right,
y'all didn't
well,
do a
you
show.
know,
things happen. I guess to do that.
Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, I appreciate your input this morning on the topic of the hip hop a little bit.
It was fun. It's always fun. I always enjoy the conversations we have on Monday mornings. I look forward to them. I really, really, really do.
All right.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. All right, Jonathan Small, every Monday is in here with special guests. And, of course, you all out there, we love to hear from you. You know, your comments in the comment section. There's a lot of them this morning. I didn't really get a chance to introduce them to our guests, but I did read them. So we'll see you all next time. You all have a great rest of your day. Do something wonderful for yourself, your family, and your friends. Special thanks to our guests this morning. And we'll see you all next time. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.